Oh, I know that premium scenes are within our grasp, ladies and gentlemen. But after 12 hours of free roam footage, main quest, and side quest footage, you get to see a lot of intense, close up, in depth combat that isn't against the romance options. Yeah, don't think I don't know what some of you bad chumbas are planning to do with your time in Night City. But let's go, everyone. Guess what? Combat is pretty hard, interesting and fun, but at the same time sluggish, slow, and boring. So how on earth can it be both at the same time? How often are you in combat? Here's a hint. Psst, the press that said they went 4 hours without combat are full of shiz, to put it kindly as possible. So let's wreak some havoc in Cyberpunk 2077. Let's burn it down, as Silverhand so kindly puts it, and start this off with a bang. But of course, now, if you enjoy this video at any point, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more daily, top quality content from your one and only pal Flix here. I mean, you can barely trust anyone in these cruel, unforgiving streets of Night City. Except me. I got your back, Chumba, which means friend in Night City for those that don't know. Alright, the press reviewer that said he went 4 hours without getting into any combat is straight up misleading, bro. Honestly, what he did was he never got far enough into the game to actually get into combat. He probably just messed around with most of his 4 hours because the game starts off very slow, like insanely slow. It gives you missions and quests to teach you some key game mechanics like hacking, special enemies, brain dances, corporations, well, not corp I mean, like so hacking, special enemies, brain dances are kind of like game mechanics, but then when it comes to corporations, nomad clans, and street factions, those you kind of find out about depending on which one of the three life paths you choose. Like if you choose corpo, you learn about corporations. Choose nomad, you learn about nomad clans. If you choose street kid, you learn about the streets pretty much. So after that, the training wheels don't come off until you do the heist at Compeki Plaza to steal the prototype biochip, the Relic, which houses the digital construct of Johnny Silverhand. So it's life path, 2 quests we've already seen on screen, and then the Compeki Plaza heist. The Braindance quest has no combat, no matter what, really, and the Maelstrom quest could be diffused peacefully, but the way it's worded is combat is seeming like it's secondary. Oh, I went entire 4 hours without firing my gun, bro. That's not something to flex at. When you get into combat, then your skills are going to be 0, nil, nothing. And it's going to be the worst experience of your life, which is why the press then said, oh, combat is sluggish and slow, while I'm avoiding combat, so my skills are 0. Avoiding combat is a largely bad choice for you to make in-game. The only reason that you should avoid combat is if you like a faction. The game's kind of built for you to pick sides, though. Playing both sides just doesn't benefit you. It doesn't grow those relationships because it's not really faction relationships. It's actually character-to-character relationship. The game's stressing. So your relationship with a faction doesn't matter much. It's why they didn't add in like any indicators for it, reputation bars, we could say. Your relationship with people in that faction is what matters, and that's pretty easy to tell. Trust me, it's they kind of you can tell pretty easily just without getting into any like spoiler-y things. Yeah, it's a bit confusing, but it makes sense if you take the time to think about it. So like I was saying, if you avoid combat when you finally actually get into combat, and trust me, you will. The devs themselves have said that that you can't do a non-combat run in the game. You can do a pacifist run. You could like not take out anyone, but you have to get into combat, and you have to use non-lethal options to dispose of your enemies. That's like a paraphrased exact quote from the devs. So there's no arguing about that. So this quest for very early on, no spoilers, that practically forces you into combat though. Like I spent an hour watching over just trying to think how on earth you pacifist run it, and I literally came up with absolutely nothing. It's so like insane to think about because it literally takes away your weapon, so you can't plan with like non-lethal stuff. It's like, huh, what am I doing? The only way to do it is probably probably net running and stealth and a bit of cheesing game mechanics. So the enemies are insanely bullet spongy to a point that I'll be honest with you, it's not fun. Like I was watching the guy planting round after round after round into this armored enemy, and he was barely moving his health bar. Granted, this was on hard difficulty, but still, that was ridiculous how bullet spongy they were, where you do next to no damage to them, but when they hit you, oh, you're done, bro. It's like 25% of your health bar. Now, we don't know how armor works in the game, though. So maybe since he was using an SMG long range, it wasn't piercing his armor. Maybe there's insane fall off damage, like the longer range you go to. At the same time, there's also the recoil where he wasn't hitting all his shots. So I'm thinking like something like Fallout New Vegas system, which would make sense to me. But still, it's like, wow, what on earth? How is he taking that much damage and he can pretty much destroy me? Speaking of damage, they don't react to like damage 90%. Well, not really 90%. I'm over exaggerating. Like half the time. I think it's a bug that might get fixed in the day one patch though, because when you shoot an enemy, they're supposed to flinch. They even like stress that mechanic. They're saying, oh, we're using a brand new physics engine, physics whatever it was, where when you shoot an enemy, they will react in real time to the specific body part they get shot. Like if they shoot the leg, they're supposed to react and flinch to the leg. Or if you shoot the arm, they're supposed to react and flinch to the arm. But they weren't flinching at all, and that's kind of what you could use that to stun lock them, by the way. But sometimes it just didn't work. Like you can throw a nade straight at them and it goes off. You have to just walk it off. The physics in game is very, very buggy to say the least. So cars could also be taken down very quick, like only a couple of shots really. They were really, really fragile, which I think is a balancing thing, because I did talk about that when I talked about the vehicles trailer, where I said, oh, couldn't you just grab one of the trucks and just back over all the faction members in their hideouts? Because some of them had hideouts that were outside, because they were, mostly outside for some. They seem to have balanced that by making them pretty fragile to any and all rounds, or it might be just specific areas that if they get shot, it takes an insane amount of damage. There's a lot of combat from the back of a car also, where you can use any weapon actually. We saw a lot of the time they were just using pistols, but you could use a shotgun. No idea why you would want to use a shotgun or an SMG. Once again, I don't know why you'd want to use an SMG there. There are special enemy types which seem to show up more often the higher the difficulty setting is. The special enemies are things like robots, mechs, mini mechs, and well, it's called miniature mechs, I think, not mini mechs, and netrunners that I've actually seen so far, and they are there to make you prioritize them pretty much. The mechs do a ton of damage, but they don't show up that frequently. I only saw like 2 mechs, and one of them was a boss fight. The netrunners get really annoying when there's more than one, because they could keep spamming overheat to burn you and do damage over time. So you have to like kind of focus them, or you're going to be smashing your screen, screaming at the game like, what on earth is this game right now? It's funny because like they said, every enemy has access to the same equipment as you, and they'll use them to the best they could to actually take you down, which is kind of true. If you scan people with your scanner, you actually see what their special abilities are. Like one might have a combat stim that they can use during combat, or etc. really. But if you take them down fast enough, they can't really use their special abilities, I guess. One shot, one frag. I believe enemies can also heal in combat, but I think that happens very, very rarely. But these enemies are just tough, dude. Personally, I'd recommend using the base Militech pistol, because it seems pretty powerful and easy to use, and can stun lock people just because it shoots so fast, until you get far enough into the main quest as you can get a pump action shotgun. Oh, this is also I think that some people were worrying about, that when you finish the prologue, if everything you gained from the prologue gets taken away from you. No, after you finish the prologue, all the equipment you had before the prologue is still on you. Even though it doesn't make so much sense for it to still be on you, it is still on you. You have everything that you had from beforehand and leading up to that point. So you can go loot anything and everything in the world and you still have it. The game doesn't take, well, there are times when the game will take away your items, but you never lose them. You always get them back at the end of the quest, pretty much. So, yeah. The pump action shotgun was able to kind of like shred through enemies. And I guess then if you manage to find a sniper, use it to snipe the special enemies off before you enter combat, just to save yourself from the absolute headache of dealing with them later on. And before any of that, don't play on hard difficulty. As name puts it, it's actually hard. Not as hard as they advertised it to be originally, where it would disable the HUD, etc., more handicaps, but it is hard to the point of being unfair, really. At least until your character starts getting cyberware, better items, equipment, and weapons, which you could, pop in mods for your weapons and armor to get stronger. Oh, and I completely forgot about the most important one, your skill. The more you use a weapon, the better you get it. I'd assume it'll lower the recoil on SMGs, make other weapons more precise because they kick up like there's no tomorrow for SMGs. And of course, watch my skills and perks video to get more in depth in this. All the perks have already been leaked on Reddit, by the way, if you want to check them out before they go down. I think they're done taking stuff down, I'm not sure. But anyways, you have to raise your attributes first, which play a giant role in combat. Mix reflexes and cool for it's so OP if you mix those. 20% critical hit chance, 20% more critical damage, and 20% that all shots will miss you. Legit, reflexes is broken, dude. They made it so overpowered that I don't think there's a way that it doesn't become the meta to max reflexes first. But some people obviously might want to go for melee combat, and unfortunately it's pretty much hack and slash. It's a button mashing simulator. Combat with melee weapons rather than anything else is just mashing buttons, which honestly was a bit expected because this is more of a game designed around first person gun combat rather than a game for melee combat like The Witcher 3, which is actually a good comparison because you start off being garbage in The Witcher 3 in terms of combat, and it's the same in Cyberpunk 2077. The difference is Cyberpunk 2077 might be easier or harder for some because it requires less knowing game mechanics and more skill, player skill that is. You need to know game mechanics for which weapons to use, which armor to wear, and where to find the items, alongside skills and perks and attributes. But at the same time, you actually have to point and aim and shoot at the enemy. So there's large amounts of player skill, which, hey, I'm happy. I play a lot of shooters. I get that clean, crisp aim, you know, that legendary aim. But I guess it's tough for people to enjoy combat like right off the start of the game, just because of the game opens up with you being a garbage character that does no damage. So you start off at rock bottom. Combat can't get any worse from there. When you start off, it's only up from there. Combat only gets better from the point you start the game. But it does take a lot of grinding and work to actually get to the point where you can steamroll is what I meant to say. I wrote steamroll, where you can steamroll through dungeons and fights, but you'll never get to the point where you can steamroll boss fights, just because of the boss fights' unique abilities and attributes, which give them the advantage over you always. Made of it about that, including a unique swamp-ish boss that could electrify you 24/7, kind of like netrunners that spam overheat on you. Honestly, that was pretty tough to watch, dude. I'm never getting over that, but I think that's more or less the important takeaways of combat. The bullet sponges, combat starting off unfair, unfun and slow, then gets more fun, fast-paced, and easier, I guess. Decide to build your character in the route of a more fast-paced combat character or more of a slow-paced walking tank, I guess, if you wanted to. So I guess combat could be as slow as fast as you want to. I think a tank would need to spread your character's attributes out a bit more, though. Personally, I'm going for a fast-paced solo character with reflexes and cool, and I'm going to be using well, I don't actually know, probably a pistol. I somehow always end up using a pistol in all RPGs. Normally it's like, no, I don't know. Normally it's just because I'm such a big hoarder. I'm like, nah, I might need that ammo someday. Let me use the bad ammo, and then I just end up using like one of the worst weapons for the entire game, and I finish. I'm like, oh, that was easy. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like if you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, then dislike, you absolute heartless monster. And subscribe anyways, because we'll welcome you into the Flick Army, Chumbat. Regardless, had to make that joke. So yeah, I think we covered like the majority of anything I can really think about for combat. I mean, I don't think we missed anything. Like literally nothing when you really think about it. That's just what combat is in Night City. Just because it's I don't know, combat fits into like such a genre where it kind of encompasses everything, cause except the romance videos. Those don't matter. I'm sorry, okay? Unless the people that are going to go wipe them out. I've seen comments like, bro, I'm wiping this person. I'm like, why would you do that? What if they can help in the end game? Heartless monster. But to be honest, skills, perks, that sort of things, they factor into it. How you actually play factors into it. So I don't know. It's like I want to say combat is only as bad as you make it out to be, but at the same time, well, if you start off with none of the customizability that's offered in combat, then combat's as bad as the game wants it to be. So it's kind of like I don't know how to explain it. It's like not a double-edged sword, just a who knows scenario where combat starts off bad. That's a very good thing, and then it gets as good as the player wants it to be. Then again, if you like, if you build your character in a way that's the opposite of how you play, then you know you're never gonna enjoy combat. I don't know, dude. It's just the thing that kind of wraps your head around how people are gonna play. It's like I know how I'm gonna play the game. I know how I'm gonna do different runs of the game, but how are other people gonna? I'm like, like what I'm doing is it going to be the? I don't know. I was about to say meta, but because I like figuring out metas. Oh my god, dude! Steam has kept. I don't know what's up with Steam. So it keeps telling me I have an update scheduled and it moves it back 5 minutes. Like every 5 minutes I'm seeing it flash because it's trying to update Cyberpunk, but it's also it's because I have auto updates on, but Cyberpunk's not released, so I can't update it. So that means I think the day one patch is out now because it thinks there's a patch for Cyberpunk 2077, but it won't let me download it. Yeah, I and then when I press play, it's like, yep, this game is not released. It will unlock on its official release day. Yep, thank you. That's really cool. Um, we're getting off too long. Peace. This is my last vid for well, not really. It's gonna be another vid in a couple. No, peace. It's gonna be another vid in a couple hours when the embargo lifts and I can start showing actual footage.